Hello! Today I'm going to be joined by our on-site nurse for the 2026 Vegan Wellness Retreat, Nurse Ray. Him and his amazing family joined us last year as well, and this year he will be a speaker. We're going to be talking today specifically about the effects of ultra-processed food has on the body and our children, and the epidemic that we are in as a country and as a world. I'm really excited to learn more and talk to him today. You'll have to excuse the wind, it's a bit windy, but we're gonna make it work. So I'm just waiting for him to jump on here and we will start. Let's see. Hi Lila. That is our pastry chef coming all the way from Finland for the 2026 Vegan Wellness Retreat. Raw in Finland, Lila. Let's see. It is windy. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How's the family?
Good. They're great. Thank you. I was just saying it's a little windy, so you'll have to excuse the wind. But besides that, we're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And I'm kind of sitting by the roadway just because we're in a condo, so might be a little
Awesome.
loud, but
Perfect. We'll make it work.
yeah.
Well, I just want to start by thanking you. You and your amazing family are going to be joining us for the second year, and we're really
Yeah.
excited. You and Lexi are going to be speaking this year, so that's going to be amazing.
Thank you for having
And then
us.
absolutely, remind me. So last year you were obviously a nurse, you're still a nurse, but now are you also a nurse practitioner?
Yeah. So I had just graduated my nurse practitioner program before the
Okay,
the festival this year. So I had just technically become a nurse practitioner, but I had not yet started working as one. Since
okay,
then I have. So
amazing.
always a nurse, but now a nurse practitioner.
Awesome. So yeah, for those of you watching, he has so much knowledge. He's fully qualified to answer all these questions, and
Absolutely.
we're super excited to have him. So today we're going to be talking about something that is like a big problem, and not just for vegans or raw vegans or for people in that are like coming for the lifestyle, right? But for the whole world. And especially in America, I think it's like totally an epidemic. A I don't know the word I'm looking for, but a huge issue in the U.S. especially. So ultra processed foods. So in the
Mm.
U.S., ultra processed foods make up, I didn't know this, 58% of the U.S. calories, and kids get 67% of their calories from ultra processed foods. That's insane. So we're not just talking about like cooked or uncooked, right? But
Mhm.
like junk ultra processed foods. So can
Yeah.
you explain to us what exactly is an ultra processed food? What it does to the body? Let's just dive right in.
Yeah, sure. So,
Uh-oh. Are you still there?
no.
There we go. We're good.
Yeah, sorry about that. So essentially, these are industrial processed foods, using ingredients that you wouldn't recognize, things, when you pull open the ingredient list, on the back of the food label and look, these are things you just don't understand what they are. These are the emulsifiers. These are the food colorings, the natural flavors, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, Anything that goes through sort of a ultra process, to make,
Yeah.
beyond just, throwing it together in the kitchen. Um, I saw this article, I think it was by Healthline, I want to say, that had just come out in the last couple of months. And of course, I'll take it at face value, but then I'll go and kind of do the deeper reading.
Yeah.
And I saw that it actually, it was compounded after a CDC data report that was published in August,
Wow.
that kind of just outlines some of these really egregious statistics, including what you just mentioned about, the percentage of how many calories are comprised of these ultra processed foods,
Yeah,
that a ton of people are getting, and more so the children, which is just so tragic if you think about it, because
yeah,
sometimes they're not even in a position to know any better or to eat anything different because they're just handed
exactly.
stuff.
Exactly. And it's insane. So like but what you were just saying, especially with kids, so we're giving them ultra processed crap and it's 67% of their calories, okay? So you're giving them this ultra processed food, right? And then it's spiking their blood sugar. It's
Hmm.
causing inflammation in the
Hmm.
body, right? And you're wondering, why do they have ADHD? Why are they being diagnosed with all these things? It's
Hmm.
the food, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, that's a really good point. So two-thirds of their calories from ultra-processed foods, 67%.
Yeah.
That's egregious. And what you had talked about with spiking the blood sugar. So you know how people say like eat through the hormone, eat through the satiety hormones and the ghrelin, the
Yeah.
leptin, and all that stuff. So these foods are just, they're made to be hyper palatable. They're made
Sure.
to be so delicious. And these food companies in a lab somewhere can test it. They can add this, add that, just to try to make it so delicious. So much
Yeah.
so that it creates almost like a dopamine reward, for
Absolutely.
when children eat these foods. And then beyond that, they just they're absorbed so quickly. Their glycemic index is so high that the brain receives all this sugar fast,
Yeah.
right? Before the stomach has even expanded to the point where it's saying, "Hey, I'm full." So
Wow.
these hormones don't even really get to be released as they naturally would be. Of course, the brain, it doesn't mind the sugar. It loves
Yeah.
sugar, so it doesn't mind that fast spike of sugar. So it creates almost like a negative feedback loop where uh, these hormones are basically overridden, and
Yeah.
again, it
And they
becomes
keep
almost
going,
addictive.
right? And they're craving it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think with the dopamine response, especially, I know, things like depression you had mentioned are on the rise.
Yeah.
With kids especially, and that's just, I mean, that just makes sense, right? So if
Right.
dopamine's being constantly depleted, a hormone, I'm sorry, a neurotransmitter imbalance will occur.
Exactly. And there is a direct link with ultra processed foods and rising cortisol.
Hmm.
Like you just said, the depression rate, the depression risk goes up, I guess, by 48 to 53% after eating a ultra processed food meal. Just
Hmm.
after eating the meal. That's insane.
It
So
is.
if you look at all these teens and all these kids that are having depression and anxiety and uh, all the like just even from a decade ago to now of how many kids are on prescription medicine because of these, it's the freaking food. You're giving
Yes.
them ultra processed foods, it's affecting their mood, it's affecting their energy, and then you are wondering, well, why my kid, why do I have to put my kid on an antidepressant?
And it's that simple too. It's
Yeah.
the food, right?
Yeah, and it's
Um,
the glucose swings, the irritability, the brain fog that you're getting from this, like you said, sugar. Okay, so glucose. Let's dive deep into that from a medical
mhm.
standpoint. Okay, so glucose. Not all glucose is bad, right? So
Not at all.
from a raw or high raw fruit eating diet versus ultra processed. They're both sugar. What is the difference?
So I'd say the biggest difference is the food itself, what what the food is comprised of, and what else comes with the sugar. So if you look at some of the biggest historical cultures, I'm not talking about like the last 100, 200 years. I'm talking about like generations.
Mm,
Um, you have these cultures that have thrived on high carbohydrate diets.
yeah,
So for example, the Han Dynasty, in China, they were eating a lot of rice. The in Mexico, the Aztecs, the Mayans, they had a lot of corn. In the Mediterranean, the Romans, they ate a lot of wheat. So you have a lot of these carbohydrates making up, the backbone essentially of these very successful and very long-standing cultures. So
sure.
there's really nothing, the difference obviously is nowadays these are all ultra processed foods. If you go to the
Yeah,
store and you get any of those items, they're going to be ultra processed.
yeah,
But if you went to the source, and you had these foods alone, or you know what I mean? Not alone, but like whole food
Yeah,
forms of them. Um, let's talk about the Irish and their potatoes.
yeah,
They got them through the famine. They're getting the carbohydrates. They're also getting, the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber. I think
sure.
the fiber is so important, and that's a lot of times what this stuff is lacking nowadays. Which is
Absolutely.
100%, why the colon cancer risk has, gone up through the roof. It's because there's no
Yeah,
fiber in the diet to speak of.
absolutely. And people always say, like, where do you get your protein? It's not where you get
Mhm.
protein, it's where do you get your fiber?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? If you focus on that, the rest of it kind of fills in nice. You
Yeah,
still get your essential amino acids. I remember, you know, looking at the breakdown of a banana and seeing that, hey, it does actually have, every essential amino acid in it,
yeah,
albeit in much smaller, numbers.
sure.
But again, you're getting it all, and the body's very smart. The body's gonna, they call it pool the proteins. It's gonna
Yeah,
combine from, okay, a little bit from this meal, a little bit from that meal, such as, what do they say, rice and beans when combined are a complete protein.
yes.
Um, you know,
And speaking of potatoes, so obviously we all know, I mean, Lassie is pretty much, I don't know if she still is, but at some point in another, she was pretty much living off of, she was a fruitarian, right? We know you can live off of fruit. We run a fruit retreat pretty much, right? So I'm
mm,
not saying that at all, but I'm saying we're going to the potatoes. Let's just talk about potatoes for a minute. It's not a bad
sure.
word. Um, so you're talking about like the potatoes and how this whole generation of people survived and they got through this famine from potatoes, right? But then it's when you add the oils and the salts and the sugars and you go and you pick up a bag of frozen potato at the store and it's not just potato, it's a
Mhm.
list of ingredients you can't even pronounce, right? So
Absolutely.
that's where the problem lies.
I mean, if you
It's
take a
not
potato,
right. I don't personally. I think I've switched, and a lot of people in this lifestyle are kind of switching and moving. And again, not saying that 100% raw isn't amazing and great, and you can thrive on it. Absolutely, but
mm,
when you're stick to the whole foods, like a potato,
mm,
okay, and you're cooking it just the potato, not adding any oil, not adding anything else to it, it's just the potato versus, and that's going to keep you away from the French fries.
mhm.
I would take the potato every time, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think when you break it down like that, and you set boundaries for yourself, and you say, hey, you know what? I like potatoes. I want to have something like a potato chip or like a French fry, or, but it's um, a very clean whole food meal,
Yeah,
cooked with a potato. I think that you can you can satisfy those cravings that may arise.
absolutely.
You can check the boxes. Hey, I had a potato meal and it satisfied me like it would, if it was a potato chip, but it does not have, the oils like you mentioned, the salt,
Yeah,
all the crap.
absolutely. So I'm gonna list a few things that are healthy foods, but that are still ultra processed. People go in the store, and I think greenwashing or something like that. There's like a thing, like a marketing tactic. But including myself, up until I started this like new lifestyle journey of like knowing to read labels. But I go in the store, right? You go in the store and you pick up this protein bar, and you see, okay, it's a protein bar, right? It's marketed to be healthy because it says protein. You automatically think health, right? But it has isolates, it has gums, it has artificial sweeteners, it has oil, it has all of these ultra processed junk,
Yeah.
right? Or vegan cereal. Yes, it's vegan, so it's healthier, right? But it has 25 grams of processed sugar added per serving, right?
hmm
Like
hmm
vegan yogurts, vegan this, vegan that. Just because it's vegan, I think a lot of times, like, especially not vegans. So I feel like once you become vegan, maybe you kind of start to learn more about health about that kind of stuff. But like the non-vegans, like my parents or our friends or whoever who are like, oh, it's vegan, it's healthy.
Yeah.
I think that that is like something that definitely needs to be talked about and like explored more and kind of not that should not be the standard. Not just because it's vegan is it healthy, right?
Right. Yeah. And you see that with a lot of stuff too. You see that with gluten free as well. You'll see tons of
Yes.
stuff. Things that you wouldn't expect to even have gluten. We'll say gluten free.
Yeah.
And it's probably a marketing tactic. It's definitely a marketing tactic for them to
Yeah.
just slap on another space occupier on the label that looks good to some people, like you said, greenwashing, they grab it. One other thing that stands out to me is when they say, "Oh, no added sugar," because you see that a
Yes.
lot, and then a lot of times what they'll put in it in lieu of that is like Splenda or like sucralose,
Yeah.
which is an artificial sugar, and maybe it doesn't have like a true calorie, but your body sees it and spikes, an insulin response to it, as it would if it were sugar. So I don't necessarily see that as a better alternative. I would
No.
just like to avoid it altogether.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where they creep in. And it's not like, obviously, ultra processed foods are terrible for you. That's what this whole thing's about. But on top of it being bad for you, it also is just really sneaky and confusing and just kind of pisses
Mm.
me off of how they
Yeah.
do that. Of, like you just said, it says no. So to the normal person, right? They see, okay, I'm trying to do no added sugar. So it says no added sugar. It says it has protein. It says it has this and that and that. I think this is a healthy option. So I'm not trying to do anything bad. I'm not trying to eat junk food. But then I eat it and I was fooled and I'm wondering why I have all these health issues, why the weight's not coming off. I'm trying my best, but that product failed me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes, yes, sometimes it's people's fault. Sometimes they want to go and they want to get the McDonald's French fries. But I think honestly, a lot of times they go in the store wanting to do better, and the
Hmm.
products fail them because it's marketed to be healthy and it's just not.
Absolutely. And I think a big problem, as you said, with marketing is that there's people out there who are obviously making a lot of money off of
Yeah,
selling their products, and they really don't care about the health of, you know,
no,
random person who buys it because somebody else will,
yeah,
if they stop. So
exactly.
unfortunately, it really all comes down to economics, which is terrible, really.
Yeah, it's especially affecting our kids. Ultra processed foods raise childhood obesity risks to 45%. 45%. High ultra processed foods intake increases teen blood pressure risk by 83%.
Jeez.
That's
And that,
like, so these cereals, these bars, these things that these kids are eating, it's not only affecting them short term and giving them ADHD and making it so they can't sit still in school and are wondering why they have difficulty learning, but then it's setting them up for failure. It's setting them
yeah,
up to be obese for the rest of their lives.
that's essentially what it is, right? It's kind of, um, again, because as I mentioned earlier, they don't know any better.
Right.
They don't have this knowledge, and that's where we come in. But then we're obviously very um, misled ourselves. So
Yeah,
it's a very systemic problem,
yeah,
but it's a big deal because I mean, obviously, if you start your life or your early life sick, and with these chronic conditions, it's very hard to recover. It's almost like starting from a couple steps back. You have to make
yeah.
up a lot of ground, and then you have to obviously, it's very sad. What can we do about this, Sarah?
Exactly. Yeah, what can we do? I want to ask you that as a nurse practitioner, besides coming to retreats like the Vegan Wellness Retreat and having kids play with other kids who are eating healthy in the same way and seeing that it's not boring or doesn't. Sorry, I'm going to stop my thought really fast. I thought it was so cool last year. So we have childcare 12 hours a day. And one
Hmm.
of the most surprising, like I didn't expect this, but one of the coolest things I thought was there were 3 to 4 kids that came who were not vegan at home.
Oh wow.
One of the parents was plant based, and so they came, and I for some reason I just figured, okay, they were gonna have a really hard time at childcare. They
Hmm.
didn't. They loved it, and
Uh,
I get texts to this day like, "Oh my gosh, they're asking for banana ice cream instead of the stuff in the store or things like that."
oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful.
I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, you can get your kids around other health-minded things. Your kids that you want your kids to eat and be like. Is
Yeah,
really
sure.
as simple as it can be. And for adults, get yourself around people that you want to be like, that you want to spend your time being like, and that you want to look like, and that you want to um, look like that life. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the people that we hang around, there is a study. I don't remember what it is, so I'm not going to try to quote it, but it's like something along the lines of like, if you hang around with obese or overweight or lazy people, you're going to become that. There's like an 80%, it's like a crazy number chance that you're going to be that. Where if you hang around people that are in shape, that look the way you want to look, that have the income you want to have, the like whatever you're looking for, you are
Hmm.
more apt to lean that direction because they're going to push you and motivate you.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's almost like a reverse peer pressure, almost like peer pressure in a good way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you start to adapt and the learned behaviors and habits and things of that
Yeah.
nature, and not to mention shared meals.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
as a nurse practitioner, what can we do? If I came into you and I said, Nurse Ray, I have a problem. I have just learned that this thing called ultra processed food, and I don't know what the first step is. What would you say to me?
Gotcha. Well, so the first step, I think, is to not go 0 to 60. You don't hop in your car and go 60 miles per hour in your
Yeah,
driveway. It just doesn't make any sense. I think the first step is really just increasing fruits, vegetables, and fiber. Just
absolutely.
eating more of it because it's such a neglected, core component of our diet. And just doing that alone, just adding a little bit more. A salad every night. For people who don't even have that. That
Yeah,
adds minerals, that adds vitamins, that adds the fiber. The fiber tablet, I don't really like them. I don't think that it's enough fiber. I don't think it's the right timing. I think that if you do that, it's really not gonna offer the benefit that it would if you just increase fiber in your diet. I think that's a huge first step.
yeah,
Um, I think in a perfect world, in my perfect world, everyone's vegan, right? But that's
yeah,
unfortunately not the case for everybody. And I'd love to be whole food and raw and plant based and everything, but unfortunately that's not for everybody. So I think baby steps. So I brought
absolutely.
this to share with you. This this solely. Um,
I love those.
these
My
things are
kids
so good.
love those.
They're so good, and it's like candy. I mean, if you can see the little picture, it's almost like little candy bars. It's
Yeah,
got two ingredients: mango and orange extract. And
yeah,
basically, um, it's dehydrated mango, basically with a little orange juice, basically. And I think that this is a great first step for people who really love candy. Let's say, well,
yeah,
hey, you can have a candy-like thing. It's almost like a little gummy bear, I guess.
yeah.
Uh, but it's a gummy mango.
I love that.
Yeah, and if that's
Really,
if that's your first,
sorry.
oh no, you're good.
I love that you're meeting people where they're at, right? So
Hmm.
you could say, no, like you could go up, this is what you could have told me. You could have said, Sarah, I'm glad that you're open to changing. I'm glad that you see that you're having an issue. Go eat some fruit. Okay, nothing else. I want you to go 40 days juice fast now. Right? And for
Yeah,
some people that works. But
yeah,
you're saying, and what I personally believe is you're meeting people where they're at. You're giving them a very, very one ingredient, technically two, but one
hmm
ingredient alternative. And
hmm
yeah, are you going to be healthy just eating those? No, you have to eat some other stuff too, right? But it's a baby steps, and it's to get them off the Skittles, right? If they can put their Skittles
absolutely,
away and they can eat that,
exactly.
100% better.
Alone, that's a great first step. I agree. I agree. And then it's about making those little baby steps, adding and subtracting things.
Yeah,
Trying to replace the highly processed foods with not. So let's say that number is 66, 67%, which is again
yeah,
awful to even think about. So what happens if you get that number down to 20% or
right?
less? With the end goal of being hey, we're gonna try not to have any of it because gosh, it's just not good. It
No,
may be it may be quick, it may be easy, it may be cheap and cost effective, but would you rather spend a little bit more money and be healthy and live healthy, or
yeah.
would you rather the cheap way and live awfully?
Ray, you better stop. You're gonna put yourself out of a job.
You know what? That's okay with me. That's okay with me. I'll go back to gosh, I used to work on sailboats, and I used to just float in the dock all day in the sun.
That
I'll
doesn't
go back to
sound
that.
bad.
It doesn't not bad at all. I'll go back to that. I don't. If everyone's healthy and I'm put out of the job, that's fine.
Awesome. Well, let me tell you a few statistics that I'm gonna read here. That did you know? Let's see. I'm sure you do, but we'll bring it up anyway. So, adding 1 to 2 servings a day of healthy foods. So single ingredient healthy foods or something like even you just mentioned. Improves mood and energy within weeks. 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. Like if you get that in, it will strengthen your gut barrier within 72 hours. So these are quick things. It's not
Wow. Wow.
like yes, losing weight takes time, getting your
Yeah.
ideal body takes time, but these are things that you're going to see quick,
Hmm.
or not
Hmm.
see, but your body sees.
Sure.
8
Yeah.
servings daily of healthy fruits and vegetables or single ingredient healthy foods are linked to a 25% lower risk in depression.
Mm. I believe that.
Whole foods stabilize hunger and reduce cravings. So if you think about that, that's crazy. You're trying to lose weight, you're going and you're getting these what you think are healthy alternatives, but they're not whole foods, they're ultra processed crap.
Hmm.
And so you're wondering why you're hungry and you have all these cravings and you're not losing weight. It's not only from the crap you're eating, but it's also because that crap is training your body to have bad hunger cues. So you
Absolutely.
will start to see these little changes by making little changes. And then after that, you're going to eat more whole foods. You're going to start getting completely, like the goal is zero ultra processed foods. And then you start seeing the weight loss. And then you start seeing the bloating decrease
Hmm.
within, let's see, how fast people feel better after removing ultra processed foods. Bloating decreases within 2 to 5 days. Energy can improve within 3 days. The microbiome shifts within 5 to 7 days. Those are like real fast,
Yeah.
real life changes. So
Absolutely.
anyone watching that is eating ultra processed food, what is the hardest thing do you think it is? Is it family? Is it hunger cues? Is it, what do you think? Why are they not just switching today?
Gosh, I personally think that it has to be habits and convenience. So
Mm,
maybe it's a habit to pull off on your way to work at the gas station and grab that bar. That
yeah,
bar that also you believe is good for you. I have to
yeah,
believe that that's what it is. I have
yeah,
to think.
no, absolutely.
And
As a nurse, do you see, and like as a practitioner, um, do you see a lot of patients or kids or adults that come in and that have like the ultra processed food is the reason that they're having to come see you?
absolutely, yeah. I think that nobody would admit it, but I think food, the food we eat, drives most of the diseases. Aside from things like viruses or like you know, trauma and like things that you can't
Yeah,
predict. I think like really all chronic disease is from the food we eat. I mean, if you look at the
yeah,
breakdown of the most lethal chronic illnesses, being like heart disease and cancer and things of that nature, diabetes. I think that all of those, the common denominator is food and what we eat.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's why it's so important for parents out there, start your kids early, start
Mhm.
them young, um, not on these ultra processed foods, because otherwise you're setting them up, unfortunately, for a life of disease and cravings and addiction, and for them to have to deal with what you're dealing with right now. Because for most of us growing up, we were we grew up on ultra processed food, and now we're having to do the hard work now. So if we could avoid that for our kids and just give them a leg up from where we are now, I think that's the goal. That just changes everything and sets us up for a whole different kind of world in 30, 40 years. Uh-oh, did I lose you? Oh no. Please come back. No. Okay, Ray, I'm going to stay here. Come back. Let's see if I can add you again. I'll invite you. Uh-oh, please come back. I have some good questions left. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today and watching us live. And for those watching back, you can I encourage you to write some comments. If you have any questions for Nurse Ray, he's such a wealth of knowledge, and he would gladly, I'm sure, answer any questions you may have for him regarding ultra processed foods. If I can just get him back on here. Yeah, you're back.
Hey, sorry about that. My phone died. I was outside.
That's okay. I have some great questions for you. This is my favorite part. So I was like,
Ah,
please come back.
sorry about that. Okay, we're
No,
good.
you're good. Okay, so I want to know, what are your 5 favorite ultra processed free emergency snacks? So when you're in that time crunch and you're like, oh my gosh, I need a snack, instead of stopping and doing what you said and stopping at the gas station and getting your bag of chips, what are your top 5 snack options?
Gotcha. So I think the dried mangoes would be my first, the ones that I showed you.
Yeah,
I love those things. If I habitually eat the whole box, I don't feel bad about it.
sure.
Gosh, I think I always kind of plan ahead, with these banana smoothie things that I make. My coworkers can attest to that.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be number two. Um, Honestly, at this point, I'm not actually raw, but I do like, to eat whole food, plant-based. I like these little, 5 ingredient tortillas. I've been
Ooh.
eating them lately with, like some beans,
Yeah.
or rice or what have you.
I'm gonna pause you right there. So this is something I think, for me, it doesn't make me laugh, or it's not funny because that's so normal. But for
Mhm.
someone watching who's not whole food plant based or isn't raw or in this, they would they'd be like, rice and beans, or beans with a tortilla. That's not a snack. But like for us, like that totally can be a snack, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're practically half a dinner, right?
Yeah.
Combine that with the salad and gosh, you're good. The other would be my salad. I really do like to make this I make a guacamole first and then I kind of
Ooh,
shred lettuce and put it into it to make it a guac salad, we call it.
delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. It's basically like you're eating scoops of guacamole, but it is truly a salad. Um, Gosh, yeah, I think what's that, four? Four things?
Yes.
Hard to
One
think of
last
these.
thing.
One last thing, I guess it would have to be just going back to the fruit, just like an
Yeah.
apple or a banana. I do like to blend the bananas and eat them, but I will occasionally just eat them whole.
Yeah, delicious. Awesome. So this is another question that I don't know if you know for sure. So if you don't, no worries. But I'm hoping you do because I want the answer.
Hmm.
How does dopamine reset after removing ultra processed food? Does it take a while? Is it quick? What can you do to kind of reset your taste buds and your dopamine?
Yeah, that's a good question. Truthfully, I don't know the time period that it takes, for the reset to occur, but
Sure.
it would all be driven by habits and things of that nature.
Yeah.
We're very habit based creatures, I guess.
Ah.
We're driven by habits, whether they're good or bad. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of eating can be habit based. And with that, habits play right into the dopamine release. When you check the box in your mind, hey, I did this right when I'm supposed to.
Oh,
Little dopamine release.
yeah.
So if
I
you
didn't
think
even
about
think
it,
about that.
it's like rewiring or like relearning
Yeah.
habits. And when you do that, your dopamine will shift. So it's kind of like I was speaking about earlier with the potatoes.
Yeah.
So you're not going for the potato chip, you're not going for the French fries, but you're going for um, a whole food plant based potato with less in it, less
Yeah.
processed crap. And when you do that, eventually there'll be a subtle shift of a dopamine response, and that will eventually be your new dopamine response, and
Wow.
that will check those boxes. And if let's say you have potatoes every night and that's your habit, well, then when you shift it to the whole food, plant-based potato, then again that becomes your dopamine slash habit, if that makes
Wow.
sense.
That's so cool. I love that. And then if you make these small changes, I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, but if you make these small changes and okay, so now your dopamine shipped to the potato, right? And then you do that for long enough and now you're like, okay, well I want to do something more. So now I want to start making sure I get 3 servings of fruit in a day. Then your
Hmm.
dopamine switches to that and then you start craving it. I'm assuming, right? So then you're like, well, I need my potato. Not I want my potato chips or I need my
Right.
fruit. I'm just craving apple.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
And
That's amazing.
yeah, this what comes to mind with this is after. after your retreat in
Yeah.
Michigan, when I got back to Connecticut, I had I hadn't been to a fruit festival in over 2 years, and
Wow.
I was really missing the community and the behavior and things like that. So I was
Yeah.
really motivated, to go raw right away. My gosh, and I got such like a dopamine release in my brain,
Ah,
when I went to the market and just filled up my cart, completely with, fruits and vegetables and like the
yeah.
best looking things. And it was almost like doing the work for me. It was almost,
Yeah.
driving my motivation and my adherence really to the
That's
diet. And gosh,
amazing.
like you said, it just took a couple days and I felt amazing. I've been sharing this with everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so awesome. Speaking of the retreat, so I spoke at the beginning, but we didn't dive into it. So you're speaking this year at the Vegan Wellness Retreat. I'm so excited.
Me too.
Do we have an idea of what it's going to be on yet? Or do people stay tuned?
Let's say home is where the heart is. Let me just
Okay.
leave it at that.
Okay. Teasing them. Yay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super excited to learn what that's going to be, and to have you speak. And Lexi is going to be speaking, and yeah, your amazing family is coming, and I'm so excited. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to talk about today, or that you want to end on or share? Um, that
Um,
will be official.
well, I just wanted to thank you again, for having me on here. It's
Absolutely.
wonderful to kind of nerd out about just, this stuff, and
Yeah.
again with a like-minded individual, because I can talk about this with my colleagues all day, who don't necessarily buy into it, and
Yeah.
it becomes depressing, I guess. So
Yeah.
share this with you and be able to talk about it is just what I love to do. So again, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Really, really looking forward to being there again this year, and being the nurse on site, just in case
Yes.
things happen, and I'll be there
Yeah.
for the scrapes and stuff.
Amazing. Well, on a final note, and thank you for that. Yeah, I can't. I'm last year. So for those of you backstory, Ray came last year as our nurse on site, and we had a few bumps and bruises. And this year, that is not happening. So anyone who comes, be very careful, and there will be no bumps and bruises.
None.
Because
None.
he needs to just focus on his talk this year.
Hmm. Hmm. Like I
Um,
said, put me out of the job.
yes. So on a final note, what is one truth about ultra processed foods every American should know? Just a quick summary, and then what is something they can do today besides what we already talked about? Is there one last thing that will make the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think there is. I think what would make the biggest impact is, and I may have touched on it a little bit, but just picking it up, looking at the ingredient list,
Yeah.
seeing if you can recognize everything, and I think starting to raise you don't have to change your behavior, but just starting
Yeah.
to raise awareness. Hey, not this, but hey, this is an ultra processed food, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. How does that feel? Do I still want it? Do I still crave it? Just raising awareness, just
Love
try,
that. Just the
that,
mindfulness.
absolutely. Being a little bit more intentional.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Ray. Thank you for being here. Super
Thank you,
excited to
Sarah.
see you guys in June. And
Hmm.
thank you for the work you're doing. I'm sure, like you said, it can get kind of depressing. And that's a whole nother story of getting into working with coworkers in the medical field of that don't know um, anything about nutrition or food. Um,
Yeah.
but
One
thank
day
you
at a
for what you're
time.
doing, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for keeping us healthy and putting yourself out of a job.
Of course. Of course. It's my pleasure. You take care, okay?
You too. Bye bye.
All right. See ya.